Hey, everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to the Digging Deep podcast with Nicholas Nick. I've got my new best friend here, Brandon Rickman, with me. Brandon and I just met about a week ago, and Brandon just told me an amazing story that we're going to dive into today. But Brandon, how you doing today, brother?
I'm great. I'm great. It's been a pleasure talking to you and hearing a little more about your story and kind of sharing some of our similarities. So I look forward to spending some time with you.
Yeah, I know one of the things you told me before we got started is how you've learned so much through failure, you know.
Yeah.
And I made a Facebook post a couple years ago that said, "What if someone told you you had to fail a million times before you became successful?" Right?
Yeah.
How much more
Yeah.
would that? Because we all want to go out and take such perfect action,
Hmm.
everywhere that we go. And if it's not perfect, we don't do it. But at the same time, I always say, you learn nothing when it's perfect.
Right.
When you do right, like
Yeah.
what'd you do right? I don't know.
Yeah. And it's funny now when you talk to people, when I talk to people and explain what we do or kind of the level that we're at now, and they're like, oh man, that's great. And they just think that it was, you start one day and it's just all like this. And they don't see, the 10 years or 15 years of struggle that you had before you got there. So I think it's a testament to, any business leader, as you know, has to be resilient, has to fight and scratch and kick, to make it happen. At the end of the day, we tell everybody take imperfect action. Just do it. Just get out there and get started and you'll learn.
The sooner you fail through it. And what I always say is failure is great as long as you're paying attention, right?
Yeah.
Failure without paying attention, I call that autopiloting. you know
Yeah.
that's much more painful. That means you're going to wake up and fail tomorrow. But me, I love to fail, take a note, fail, take a note. And then
Yeah.
I remember when I founded my business and it blew up, and it did blow up. Our first 6 months we did $370,000 in sales. And then
Wow.
yeah, and then everybody was like, "Oh, I'm so happy for you." Da-da-da. And I said, "Do you know have any idea how many ideas didn't work before?"
Right.
Like something had to hit eventually. I
Yeah.
was trying so much different, multi-level marketing, other businesses, selling shit
Yeah.
on eBay, and it's
Right.
like, but through all of those failures and all of those lessons, right, came what looks like perfect action now to other people, you
Right.
know. Um, and,
Yes.
and I,
The blessing and the curse of being an entrepreneur. It's like try have a million ideas, try a lot of things. I have a saying, you're not failing unless you quit. So the only way to fail is to quit. When you try something, you start a business, and I tell people all the time, I've crashed many businesses into the ground. Fortunately, the wins have been bigger than the losses, but I've learned a lot more from the losses than I have from the wins, like we've talked about. But at the end of the day, if you try something and it doesn't work out and you learn from it, you're better off next time around or in your next venture. So it's not really failure. To me, the only failure is if you quit trying.
right.
And now my friends tell me I'm unemployable. There's no way I could go back to work for someone else at this point.
Yeah. Well, that's actually my jet fuel, right? It's like my jet fuel is if I had to go back to work, I'd either be fired or quit nearly. I mean,
Yeah.
I recently went back into corporate as a consultant, and I'm pretty
Mm.
sure I was their least favorite employee. And what happens is like, I'm making $1 million a year from this job. So I'm not showing up to corporate meetings like I need the job. Like, hey, this idea sucks.
Yeah.
It just sucks. And I'm not scared to tell you that because I don't care if I hurt your feelings. Because
Right.
but you realize the more someone needs a job sometimes, the more they conform to what the job requires them to do. And it's not always, I used to say all the time, doing the right thing and making your boss happy is not always the same thing, you know?
Right.
And as a
Yeah.
restaurant manager, my boss often wanted me to do things that maybe wasn't best for the customer experience, and maybe wasn't
Mm.
best for the patrons, and maybe wasn't even best for the company long term, because if these customers don't come back, yeah, this may save $5 today, but it's costing $5,000
Mm.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
But I love that prelude. But why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself so everyone knows, a little bit about your journey and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in a family of real estate people. So my dad was a builder, grew up in the construction industry. When I was a kid, we were working on job sites and learning how to do all the different things with houses. So I'm probably one of few contractors who actually knows how to do all the different trades. Nowadays, you just have to know how to use the phone and call subcontractors. But my brother and I grew up doing all the work. And so after college, I got into flipping houses and then got into doing new construction and did that I've been in real estate for 25 years. So kind of went through the last major crash of 08, 09. We were doing mostly new construction back then and survived that downturn by the skin of my teeth, but did survive and kind of clawed our way back and then started flipping houses primarily after that. So 2010, 2011, started flipping more houses. And then since 2016, kind of got a vision of a bigger scale on flipping houses. And so I worked with a buddy of mine. We were flipping 100 houses a year in the Atlanta market, and it was wide open. Lots of employees and just a lot of stuff going on. So since then, we eventually split up and kind of did it on my own. So now we're buying houses, flipping houses, buying rentals, kind of mostly in the single family space, but we are transitioning now to self storage as well. So I mentioned to you before we got on here, we're building a 115,000 square foot self storage facility in Lawrenceville, Georgia. So that's a fun project and continuing to learn and grow.
Wow. So I don't know where Lawrenceville is, but if I was to guess, it's very close to a metro area.
Yeah, it's about 30 minutes north of Atlanta.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was thinking that because, like, man, that's a lot of storage space. I'm sure there's got to be a lot of citizens around there to do. Now that's interesting, right? So you went from not that you don't flip homes anymore, but you're going from like the single family unit now to this business. It's a business, right?
Yeah.
So like now storage,
Yeah.
this is a full blown business, profits, losses, units, all that other stuff.
Yeah, it is. And it's I kind of think of new construction and flipping houses as transactional businesses. And by the way, we do still flip houses and do a lot of outbound marketing and we teach other people how to flip houses who are interested in quitting their 9 to 5 job. So that was kind of the driver for me when I graduated from college and wanted to do real estate. It's like I don't want to go to work Monday through Friday from 9 to 5 and have somebody tell me what to do all day, on their schedule. And I'm like you, I'm not a yes man. I don't do well in the situation where somebody, my supervisor just wants me to smile and agree. That's not my personality. I'm the type of personality that I'm going to tell you my opinion and what I think based on my research. And if you like it, great. And if you don't, that's okay too.
Right.
So I didn't fit in well in corporate America. And that was kind of my driver to really grow the real estate business. Was, I wanted autonomy. I wanted flexibility in my schedule and I wanted to be able to call my own shots. And so was able to do that. And obviously we teach other people how to do it as well. But specifically to answer your question, even flipping houses at a high volume like we've done, you mentioned over 100 houses a year. It's great income, but I consider it transactional because you have to go find a house that meets your criteria. You flip the house, you make good money. Now you got to go find another house. And so as I've gotten older and I have a son who's almost 15 and my wife, we've been married 23 years. And so
Wow.
I wanted to do something that was more generational, something that I could pass down to him. And so I started looking at self-storage and multifamily, kind of settled on self-storage. And it's something that you spend a lot of time on and a lot more money up front. But then once you develop the facility or buy the facility and get it stabilized, it continues to pay you month after month after month as long as you own it. So that was the point behind the self-storage deal. It's been great. I love to learn new things, so that's been fun. But it is much different. It's raising a 2 or 3 or $400,000 for a house is much different than building a $13 million storage facility.
Right.
So that's where
And
we are now.
and then, even hearing you describe that, I own a 4 unit and a 9 unit and a couple other, and how nice is it to have units without toilets, right?
Yes.
That's really what I'm hearing. So one thing I've heard, I actually could hear the ease of managing. Man, the tenants don't live there. They're not trashing the joint. Everything's like probably solid concrete and steel anyway, so it's hard
Yep.
to fuck up. But
Yep.
drywall can get holes punched, plumbing can overflow. You don't have any water even running to these units at all.
No, we have a bathroom, two bathrooms, a man's bathroom and a women's bathroom, and then we have an office for the employees, and that's it. No other bathrooms, no other water, and we've got one roof, and it's not going to go out very quickly. So, and we actually are putting solar panels on our building so that it's has some green initiative to it, but it also helps with the utility costs, and so. It's great not having to worry about getting a call Friday night at 11 o'clock with a water heater broken. So
Great.
yeah, self-storage is absolutely the way to go.
And anyone who's had even a single family house knows that, tenants are a nightmare.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, tenants are freaking and they'll get a great tenant. We talked about this earlier. When things are perfect, you don't learn shit. Great tenant, they pay every month, they never call you. You're like, yeah, being a landlord. Oh, this is fucking great. Yeah. Let me tell you, I got this one tenant. She's definitely on crack. You know, every person I send to the property, she chases off the property. She's also a hoarder. You can't even make it in
Wow.
to her
Yeah.
unit.
Yeah.
We sent a buyer there, and she's like, this fucking place. She's chasing the buyer around, telling them what pieces of shit we are. And I mean, clearly we're
Oh
not
yeah.
this shit. But yeah, so it's like, boy, you get someone like that. Like, I call her a demon. I don't even call her a tenant anymore. I mean, she's
Right.
a demon. She's the entity has what's the word I'm looking for? There's an exorcist. The problem.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And you can't get her out. You can't evict her.
Oh no, she's on her way now. I think
Okay.
May 25th, baby.
Yeah.
May 20. That's going to be like New Year's Eve. I might even hire a marching band to go buy that fucking unit. But again, back to what I was saying, it's like, you know, what I love about the way you've described the storage facility is it's almost hard once it's up and running, it's almost hard to lose sleep over.
Yeah.
It's kind of what I'm hearing. And you have a tenant, they stop paying. Nothing's worse than someone who stops paying and is destroying your property and who's chasing away people trying to come by and repair the property, right? And it's like
Yeah.
I lost a bunch of sleep over this lady, you know,
Yeah.
and you almost no one lives there, so you almost can't even have that. Right. Hey, you
Yeah.
want your stuff? Come get your stuff. We're putting it outside. Like that's as a storage facility, right? It's like
Right.
it's very cut and dry. So I'm actually you've actually just may have piqued my interest. So if you're looking for an investor on your $13 million facility, I would
Yeah.
actually like to talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk offline about that. And we still have some rentals left. We've sold most of them for the reasons that you're talking about. And I do think you can build value using single family homes. And so I'm not opposed to that. It's certainly when you're starting out and when you're if that's your goal is to buy rental houses, I think you really have to scale that business to have success, like 30, 40, 50 houses or doors. Because what I found is that you might make 100, 200, $300 a month
Right.
cash flow on a property, but then the tenant moves out and you got to spend $5,000 or $6,000 to repaint and replace the flooring, or they have the HVAC unit goes out and you have to replace that, and that's 10 grand. So the $200 or $300 a month that you made, you now lose in one deal. So overall, we didn't see a huge return on the cash flow, but I will say, and this really helped us probably 12 or 15 years ago. I don't ever encourage anybody to buy for appreciation only. I think that's a horrible business model. And a lot of people that you and I both know have lost a lot of money focusing only on
Banking on that.
appreciation.
Right.
Yeah. So I always tell everybody, I was telling my son the other day, you buy a property for cash flow. And then if you keep it for 10 years or 15 years or 20 years, it's probably going to appreciate. It usually does. And that's bonus. But even if it doesn't appreciate, you're still making that cash flow every month. So you're making money on it month in and month out. And then 10 years from now, 15 years from now, you sell it, then it should have appreciated. And that's actually the first two houses that I bought as rentals. I kept them for 10 years and one for 12 years, one for 10 years. And when I sold them, they had doubled in value while my tenants were paying down the mortgage. So I essentially doubled my money, more than doubled my money, which gave us, capital to invest in other things. So I think there is a place for single family for sure. But I think as you grow, like you have, and scale the business, like we and a lot of the people that we know have, you kind of start thinking, okay, what's the next thing that I can do? What can I? Now my time is worth a lot more than it was. I'm not doing everything by myself. Where do I invest my time and my money that I'm going to get the biggest return and potentially leave something for the next generation?
Well, and that was a part of my problem, right? So I used to make $60,000 a year. Well, making $500 a month cash flow sounds fucking great when you make $60,000 a year. Now I make
Yeah,
$60,000 a month, and I'm like, why the fuck am I losing sleep over $250 a month? Like,
yeah,
you start doing like I just made $120,000 in sales and profited 60K. Why am I getting stressed? Because you start equating, and I'll tell you, anyone who starts making a lot of money realizes stress costs way more than repairs. I'll tell you,
absolutely.
the one time I lose sleep, I wake up, something's got to change. Like
Mhm.
I can't fucking lose sleep again. That's my sleep last night was worth 50,000 fucking dollars. That's how I feel. Because what happens is I
Yeah,
then wake up grumpy. Now I'm in a bad mood. Now a sales call comes in that I can't even handle properly because I'm all
yeah,
mad about $250 a month, right?
right.
And so, you do start to scale. And I do believe, my one of my biggest come ups was single family. I do totally agree. I think there's a time and a place, but I would say that, you know, I feel like single family housing buy and holds is a strategy for somebody who is almost using it like a bank account, right? It's
Mm.
just like, hey, I might be making 5% on my money here, and then it might also appreciate well. So it's almost like you almost have to have it to lose. Because, like you
Mm.
said, especially now, like with everything, a flood comes by, something crazy happens, and it's like, you get, so I live in Florida, and my
Mhm.
area was heavily impacted by the floods. And
Yeah,
a lot of these people got screwed. I don't know how that happened, but their claims are getting denied or something crazy's happening. And it's, dude, if my claim got denied, I mean, I'm getting $140,000 next month from my claim, and it's like, dude, if that
Mm.
was denied, I mean, even with my financial status or standing, like that's painful,
yeah,
So you almost have to have it to lose. But I'm a huge fan. I will never own a property without a property management company again. That's one of my
yeah.
big lessons. There's so many nuanced things. Like I was like, I could do this myself. I got this and then as soon as shit goes left, you're like, wait, what's the protocol? Wait, how can we evict them? And then it's like
Mm.
you have to stop. I have to stop making 60,000 a month and focus on how to save 250. It's like
Right.
just so that's my advice to everyone. If you're doing buy and hold, get a property manager in there. Don't think you can handle it. You're going to learn things the hard way. I just had to pay $5,000 to get two tenants evicted, and and one of them isn't even getting evicted for like 6 months based off the
Mm.
deal that we signed. You know.
Yeah,
But and anyways, but I would love to also learn a little bit about your journey, right? Clearly, and I love that you did all the work yourself, right? Like you actually grew up, sounds like tiling, flooring, kitchen cabinet. Like you you built your empire from the ground up, figuratively speaking.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so tell me a little bit about that. So what age were you when you started working in the family business?
Oh gosh, it's funny to think back to some of these stories. You said tile. I can remember roping my wife into us tiling a floor of a house that we were building. Actually, her father was building. My father-in-law was building. I was like, "Don't spend all that money on a tile guy. We'll come do it in the weekend." Oh man, we were working till 2 o'clock in the morning for about 4 days straight trying to finish this tile. Back's hurting, which I had done it before, many times. So I was like, oh, it's a piece of cake. Of course, that was, when I was 25 years old, and I'm not 25 anymore. But yeah, I mean, I think it's great now. I add a lot of value to the fact that I can look at a property and know if it's done right or wrong. I know how to read plans. I've built commercial buildings and a lot of residential stuff as well. So ton of value in that, and I'm grateful that I grew up learning that. So yeah, my dad was a builder, and my brother and I, from the time we were probably 10 or 11 years old, we were doing everything from sweeping out
Really?
houses. Yeah. We'd go to a house, and on the weekends or in the summertime, we'd sweep up trash and pick up trash in the yard, and eventually learned how to hang sheetrock. We built houses where we dig footings for concrete, for the foundation, framed houses, roofed houses. So we started doing it, when we were young, and we learned how to do all of it. In fact, my brother is still a commercial contractor now. I kind of went off on the residential side for the most part, but um, I think probably the most valuable lessons I've learned along the way are like we talked about before. And I mentioned some of my buddies call me a street fighter because it's like, you get knocked down and you can't just stay down, right? You got to get back up and kick and fight and claw your way back. And so going through the 08, 09 crisis, the real estate downfall and the whole financial downfall was rough. We had built up a business. We were doing a lot of new construction downtown in the city of Atlanta. We're just outside of Atlanta, so we were working primarily in that market. And we got hammered with everybody else. And I had banks pulling loans from me. I had banks calling loans due, and really just it was everything was collapsing. And so I learned so much through that process, of working through it, being resilient, negotiating with banks and insurance companies and everything else. And really, as looking back on it, we've said you learn so much more from the failures or the mistakes or the troubles that you go through than you do from the successes. But having gone through that before and surviving it and coming out on the other end, like my mindset going into the next time or into my next deal was like, oh, I can do this 100% because what's the worst case scenario? Right? It doesn't work out, and I'm negotiating with banks and selling off properties at a discount and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But having survived it and now looking back at it, I've learned so much. I learned I can make it through it. I'm tough enough to make it through it, and I'll come up with another business idea. I have a wonderful, supportive wife who's like, okay, that one didn't work. Let's sweep it under the rug and move on to the next one. So it has been a journey. Of many years, but I love it. I love real estate. I love helping other people leave their 9 to 5 and learn how to do real estate. It's just a fun industry, a fun business, and we've been fortunate to come out of the other side of some of those crazy times and land where we are now.
Well, yeah, I mean, your story is like I was just saying yesterday because I'm getting my home remodeled. We just flooded, from the last Hurricane Helene that hit pretty bad
Hmm.
area, and you know, I really respect construction people, right? From tile, backsplash, countertops, cabinetry. I don't know how to fucking do any of this shit, you know? And it's like, and even when some people can do it all. And so I think your experience is really unique, right? Like you really know how to go, hey, these baseboards aren't right. Hey, this tile isn't accurate. Hey, and I think
Hmm.
that's the hard part about construction. That'll be my fear of owning a construction company is I'm such a pain in the ass. Like nothing's ever right or finished, Like, hey,
Yeah.
what's this over here? What's this dent here? What you just paid? I had $150,000 repair. I don't want a dent up here,
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
so it's like, so I really respect the particulars. And when you're in my shoes now, and so I'm not hard on my contractors, but I'm like, God, they must go through this with everyone. If I'm fucking seeing all this stuff, like I think it's also, a super hard business. So it's like, your story is really cool. You started, at the bottom, right? Sweeping,
Hmm.
picking up, then you started doing sheetrock, tile. Now, then you started owning, right? Then the crash happened. Then you start negotiating with banks and lenders, right? So like each increment, you've kind of really leapfrogged your way
Hmm.
your way up the chain, and now your story is really cool, which is probably why you even coach now in the first place because you're such a organic success story
Yeah.
you literally it was literally the school of hard knocks. With me, I ran restaurants and it's very similarly. When a
Mm.
restaurant manager gets hired in any concept, their first 9 weeks is working every position in
Mm.
the restaurant, right? It's not, hey, come in
Yeah.
and be a great manager. No, it's if you don't know how long we cook the fucking chicken wings for here, you're dead. Okay. If you
Yeah.
don't know, if you don't know this, and so the background I come from is kind of your background where I need to know the foundation
Hmm.
so I can build, right? You can't build if you don't know the foundation. So I think that your story is really cool. It's really organic. And what I often call stories like ours is like Bible stories, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like when you're finally where we are in life, everything looking back makes a ton of sense looking back.
Yeah.
But while we're in the shit and we're dealing with it, you're like, why am I doing this? This
Yeah.
is the worst thing ever. So I call those Bible stories because they're so painful during our experience. However, they're providing so many solutions, that we're
Yeah.
that we're kind of experiencing today.
Yeah, that's right. And I at one point I had my own remodeling company. And so that was after the crash initially. So I was remodeling houses for other people, remodeling houses for other flippers, flipping some myself. But all of that, and at the time I hated it. I didn't like remodeling, but it was a means to an end at the time till I could get back on my feet. But now when I'm flipping houses and a contractor tries to tell me why they can't do this or can't do that or why it's going to cost this much, I'm like, hold up for a second. Don't forget, I used to do this and I know exactly how to do it. And you're not going to tell me, you're certainly not going to be able to push me around and try to BS me about something because
Right?
I know how to do it. I've done it for years.
Absolutely.
So, and I think too, you mentioned this, but I think too, part of the reason that I do coach and help other people do it is because I guess a couple of reasons, but one, if I can do it, anybody can do it. And I want other people, if they want to learn how to do it and they want to not work for the man for the rest of their life, then I want them to be able to do that and to build the kind of life that they want, have the flexibility they want. But the other thing is I can share my 25 years of experience and everything that I've learned over those 25 years, things that I've been through that have been good or been bad, and then I can share those with other people now. Now you can learn from my mistakes instead of having to make them on your own.
100%. Yeah. And I was the same way with me as a restaurant manager, I ran all the positions. When I was in the back, I had the best numbers in the back. When they put me up front, I had the best numbers up front. And then when I had made it to me, they're like, it's just not possible. Whoa, whoa, whoa. You're talking to the guy who made it possible, right?
Right.
And to your point, it's like, and that to me is also a true mentorship. Not all those
Mhm.
people are lazy, right? Just because they say it's not possible, that's not them trying to get out of work. They
Yeah.
really don't know the solutions we've previously paid. And I think that also speaks to a lot of our leadership. I mean, think of the knowledge that, and just in my company, I was my first employee. I was my like we're cold calling. I was the cold caller, right?
Hmm.
I didn't like hire a Filipino and say, "Tell me everything you learned," okay?
Right.
Like, like it was me. And then when I hired someone, I told them everything I'd learned,
Yeah.
So I really love that ground up approach. Tell me whenever you were getting to your 100 homes, tell me about what that engine, that's flipping, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's not wholesaling, just so everyone knows. That is like buying, purchasing materials, getting contractors, flipping the house, and then selling it, right?
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that time and what the journey to 100 homes was like.
So I actually we have a mutual friend. I think you know Ken Corsini. Do you know
Yeah.
Ken from working with Cody? So Ken was a buddy of mine for a long time, and he and I actually flipped a couple houses years and years ago, and then he went down the path and continued flipping when I went new construction. So I started doing new houses. He stayed on the flipping thing, and so we stayed friends. He invested in a company that I had, which we ended up selling, and then he called me and said, "What are you going to do next?" And I said, "I don't know yet, looking for my next deal." And so I went to work with him, and he was doing a lot of turnkey properties at the time. So turnkey being similar, but you basically buy a rental house, you remodel it to rent ready condition, put a tenant in place, and then turn around and sell that to an investor so that it cash flows. So basically, you as an investor, you can come in and buy this house for whatever, $150,000. It rents for $1,800 a month, $300 a month cash flow. It's got a tenant in place. We have a lease in place, insurance in place, everything done. So that's called turnkey. So he was doing a lot of that, and the market was getting better and better. And so when I joined him, we kind of moved into retail flipping.
Okay.
So that's more what you hear about nowadays when you hear people talking about flipping is like you said, finding a house that's in bad shape, remodeling it, putting it on the MLS or selling it to a retail buyer. And so we scaled it up to where we had probably 12 people in the office. Most of the time, of course, we had field people, we had contractors. So we had a combination of some contractors that worked exclusively for us and some subcontractors as well. And then, of course, project managers. And it was a full scale business, and it was great. It provided a lot of income, and it was a fun business, but it was also a lot of a lot of work and a lot of time, and you had to continue to do deal after deal after deal because you have that much overhead you have to cover. And with all the employees you have to do a certain amount of revenue every month to cover the overhead that you have. So again, it is the difference between I want to flip a few houses a year and I want to run a business. And it's great information, great knowledge, a lot of ups and downs, and very successful business, and had a blast doing it at that scale,
Yeah.
and learned a tremendous amount during that time.
What was your guys' lead source for that?
Everything you can think of.
It has to be, right?
And yeah, yeah, when you're doing, 10, 12, 15 deals a month. So they say the national average is about 2% of the people who are selling their houses are motivated sellers. So if you think about that, we need 100 calls to come in for two of them to be potential sellers. And then we have to determine of those potential sellers who are a fit for our business. So
Right.
we did pay per click, pay per lead, direct mail. We did bandit signs. We did door knocking. We had two guys who that's their whole job, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, was to drive to a neighborhood, park their car, and go knocking door to door on every door in the neighborhood. And we had GPS trackers so we could see how many doors they actually went to. We had door hangers. They would hang on the door. If people weren't home, they'd say, call this number.
Right.
Um, we did cold calling, we did texting, we bought from other wholesalers, we bought off the MLS through agents. It was full scale, and that was my focus in the business was primarily marketing and
Right.
acquisitions.
Got
And
it.
so I did all of the. I mean, it was a team effort, right?
Right,
Ken
right.
Ken was the CEO, had a general manager, and then I focused on marketing and acquisitions side of it. But we kind of all wore multiple hats, so we did everything, all kinds of marketing.
That's huge. Yeah. No, and I love you just kind of gave a little mini masterclass too, which is great. Because I mean that's really what it takes. What do you think your profit was on your 100 home year? What do you think your average profit company wide was?
So we targeted 20%. I would say our net profit was probably 9%. We targeted 20% gross profit, but obviously we had some costs, some overhead and stuff after that. So 9 or 10% was probably our net profit. And we were running 15 million, 15, 16 million a year.
Got it.
So yeah, it was a busy, busy time.
Yeah. Yeah. And 9 to 10% is not a lot, right? I mean,
Especially for all the work that goes into it.
right, right. That's the thing is a lot of people, my business, God bless it, we're like 60% profit, you know.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I mean, I carry a lot of executive positions myself, right? I always joke,
Mm,
I said if I had three more executives, which is the roles that I fill, I'd probably be at about 25% like a normal business,
yeah.
But lucky for me, I kind of created something, but it's like I think that's also an important lesson, 9% profit, although it's still 1.5 mil, let's say on 50
Yeah.
million, which is
Yeah.
great. You guys may have even paid yourself out of the overhead too. So you're probably taking the
Right.
salary and making the 1.5 too, or splitting it 50-50. Those are great numbers. However, it's like, the profit is so important. And then when you're also starting a business, I think a lot of people like wholesaling too in general. And it's
Hmm.
because I got this piece of paper. Now, that piece of paper had a marketing cost to it, 1,000 to $3,000, whatever that might be, you know.
Hmm.
But it's like I don't really have any costs extraneous in addition to that, you've
Yeah.
experienced that you buy a house, you rip the kitchen out, you're like, oh fuck, like this just tripled,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
what it's cost for, which is
Yeah.
which is cool. No, I think there's a lot of really important lessons with what you just shared. But bro, if you will, tell everyone where to find you, how to find you, if they want to follow you outside of this. I'll add some links in the YouTube post.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I will say now, we're now operating now that I'm flipping primarily and on my own now. We're have changed things around quite a bit. So we operate now at about 50% margin, which is
50?
much better. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so we don't have the staff that we had back then. Ken, like I said, Ken is doing. We split up in 2018. I went off on my own, started doing it on my own. He's still doing it on his own. We're still friends and still communicate, but we're like, hey, we don't need to do this together. We can separate and do it on our own. And so, over time, since that time, since 2018, we've kind of had our team and outsourced some stuff and figured out how to do things cheaper and save money in different areas. So now we operate it much more efficiently and much better margin. So we don't do near the volume as far as revenue that we did back then when I was working with Ken, but much better margin. So, and I'm not opposed to doing fewer deals with higher margin. I think a lot of times it sounds cool to say you do 15 million or you do 100 houses a year, but if I can do 50 houses a year and make twice as much money, I'm all for that. It's
100,
much less stress.
I was going to say too, 50% is five times the amount, which means you could do five times less houses
Exactly.
and make the same money. And I think that's where we all kind of, and again, that's another, I don't even want to use the word failure because 100 houses a year isn't failure, but understanding that growing something so big, now that becomes its own machine, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like we got to feed the machine. Like at one point, you almost just have to keep houses just to keep your contractors busy or they'll quit, right?
Right.
So it's like it starts to change your whole philosophy. It's like, well, we just hired all these employees. We're going to lay them off, or are we going to take houses where we break even just to keep our team busy because our team is so
Exactly.
good? No, it's
Yeah.
a lot of wisdom in this call today about growing and big business, and even the marketing strategies you rattled off like that. Someone should rewind this and just watch that back slowly, right? Because it's really important. Like you really, if you're going to be that big, you have to do everything. I had a customer call me the other day and he said, Nick, got a real niche approach the way we do real estate investing. I got a list with 500 records on it.
Mm,
I was like, hey, yeah, so just so you know, no offense, but with 500 records, you're not scaling anything.
right.
Okay. If you can get one deal on 500 records, like you're top 5% of wholesalers, right?
Mm,
And I was like,
absolutely.
look, I was like, I respect your niche approach, but if your niche approach keeps you in this tiny pond, at one point it's going to like hinder you. And that's one thing that, like, and what you were saying was like, we had our fishing pole in every pond in existence. We couldn't afford to say, no, we don't do those. Look, if we got a 20% profit margin, it's probably a yes. It doesn't matter if it's an RV, if it's a fucking
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Like we're doing everything under the sun over here, you know.
Yeah.
No,
Absolutely.
that's
And
awesome.
we're buying 100,000 pieces of data at a time, right? And mailing, 60,000 pieces of direct mail a month and sending 50,000 texts a month. And, it's the volume. And again, I wasn't there when I started, right? That's not what we were doing when we first started, and everybody has to start somewhere. That's where you grow to over time, if that's your goal. I think over the last couple of years, scaling has been, the new sexy thing to do. Like, let's scale, let's scale. And I'm not one to sit still either. I mean, I want to grow and learn, like we talked about. But I always ask people when they're talking about scaling, when we're helping people scale from, doing 10 houses a year, they want to do 50. And I ask why. What's your why behind that? Why do you want to do that? Because I can tell you, yes, you can make a lot more money and that's great, but it's a lot more work, a lot more stress, a lot more headache, and probably a lot less time that you're going to have available to do other things. So if you have a good why behind you want to do it, I'm all for it. I'll help you do it. But let's make sure that you understand the consequences of scaling, because there are some in addition to just making more money. Um, so yeah, that's what I try to encourage people and find out kind of the reasoning behind why they're looking to scale or grow their business.
Well, one thing I've learned from my own experience, this is at least true for me, is life comes in three phases. Okay. First, we want money, and we don't care about how much time we have to put in to get that money. And we don't care about how much peace we have to lose to get that money. We just
Mm,
get the money. Then once we have the money, we realize we want time. Okay, well, shit. Well, now I need my time back. 100 houses. Wait, I'm only making 1.5 mil. Wait a second. That's only X amount. So how do I get time back? We'll shrink the operation. We'll focus on higher margins. We'll have better systems. right? And then in the end, we have storage facilities, which I call peace, right?
Mm,
So for me, the gradual life is time, is money, time, and then peace. In the end, like where I'm at right now, and probably you too, I value peace over everything. Okay.
hmm.
I don't care if it makes me money, how much money. And how much time is that? If it takes a weekend, I don't think so. I'm not fucking dedicating a weekend. Maybe a
Yeah.
month. Maybe I'll give it a month, you know?
Yeah.
But now it's like, hey, what brings peace into my life,
Mm,
right? And so, like
yeah.
I mentioned, that we can go back to the beginning, losing sleep, right? Losing sleep is the first sign you don't have peace. Okay.
Hmm.
So now my pursuit this year is peace. And you know what? The thing about peace is not everything's in our control. My house
Yeah.
caught on fire last year and it flooded last year, the one I live in.
Wow.
Okay. I joke and I say I had a very biblical 2024. Okay.
Yeah.
And now that's the thing is what we choose can't be so chaotic because life in itself is chaotic. There's,
Mm,
whether it's my father passing away 2 years ago or my house flooding or whatever, it's like we're going to be dealing with a certain level of chaos. So when we're at that
yeah.
final tier, we need to have as much peace because the chaos that we can't stop is still coming. That's what I feel like. That's
Yeah.
like kind of like your that's kind of like your timeline, and I feel like that's your style. Is it's construction was money, real estate was time, and then self
Yeah.
storage is the piece for you. It sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. That's a great analogy. I like
Thank
that.
you, Thank you. Yeah, I learned that one the hard way.
Yeah. We all do.
Yeah,
We all do.
but bro, before we wrap up here, tell everyone how to find you. You got a website or socials or anything?
Yeah, so all the social media platforms, it's under my name, Brandon Rickman.
Okay.
You can find me at theflipgenius.com, The Flip Genius. That's our coaching business. And so my phone number's on there, my email address is on there, and people can reach out to me via email or give me a call and love to see if we can help or anything we can do to, help folks grow from where they are to where they're trying to get to. We'd love to see if we can help.
I love that. And just so you know, my cell phone number is on my website too. And so I just want to
Good.
encourage anyone who's watching this. It sounds like no matter what, it's worth a phone call to pick your brain. I tell people all the time, I don't care if you're going to buy. I don't care if you just have questions. Just give me a call. Because you know what? Maybe I can meet you and help you through a deal right now or help you right now. And then you hire me in 2 or 3 months. So, I really
Yeah.
leap forward with that. And I can already tell if your phone number's on the site, you're doing the same thing. And anyone
Yeah.
watching today, they've learned a lot, too. So if you guys want a one-on-one version that I highly recommend you call Brand. I love that it's the Flip Genius. I couldn't have coined a better website for you myself after everything we've talked about, you taking it from the ground up. But brother, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for joining us today, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. It was great talking to you, and I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. And I hope you have a great week, dude. We'll catch up soon.
All right, sounds good.
See ya.
Thanks.